Koontz, and this is my wife, Penny. We got corn, beans, and we do wheat. Penny decides she wanted to buy another 10 acres.
It was very easy for me to get that 10 acres, and they set it up so I was able to pay that in a reasonable time, so I didn't have that 10 acres over my head for the next 30 years.
I finally got the chance when I retired. I said, all I want to do is farm. That's my retirement, and we got to where we can do that with the help of Farm Credit. Farming's pretty tough, but I'm not going to lose no sleep over it because they got my back. Everything's getting more high-tech. Farm Credit's come through every time I've needed assistance changing over to the high-tech stuff.
I think it's nice that Farm Credit has given you the option to go high-tech, because I don't think we would have ever been able to do that by ourselves.
Make the switch from customer to member owner and do business the cooperative way at farmcreditil.com/YFCI.
Experience the power of better connection with Connexus Fiber Internet. Connexus delivers ultra-fast, reliable speeds to keep you connected at the speed of life. Whether you're working from home, streaming your favorite shows, or gaming with your friends, Connexus has you covered. Say goodbye to buffering and dropped calls and say hello to fiber fast internet. Ready to upgrade your connection? Sign up today by clicking the Connexus icon at DeWittDailyNews.com. Nothing connects us like Connexus.
DeWittDailyNews.com is the area's leading local news source 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get the latest local news, obituaries, police blotter, weather forecast, and more with no paywall. Head to DeWittDailyNews.com to get the local information you need to know.
Netflix buffering, YouTube spinning, devices not connecting, Zoom calls dropping. It's frustrating. Let's end your frustration by signing up for fiber internet in Clinton. Click the Connexus icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
News time is 8 minutes after 7 o'clock here on this Tuesday. Thanks for being with us this morning from the newsroom of Regional Radio and DeWittDailyNews.com. I'm Seth Lawrence with this expanded 7 o'clock newscast brought to you by Baum Chevrolet Buick in Clinton, your Silverado headquarters, and brought to you by Connexus, providing fiber internet to Clinton. Learn more at DeWittDailyNews.com. Rural hospitals across the country are closely monitoring the budgeting process in Washington, D.C., as they hope the Trump administration spares Medicaid from cuts. Warner Hospital CEO Paul Skowron indicates this is something they're not only keeping close tabs on, but they are beginning to plan for the event that cuts to Medicaid come.
Medicaid is our specific concern. Our board, at our board meeting last Monday, was concerned and asking whether or not we're already doing calculations to try and estimate the effects. And they know, and we all agree, that this is not a done deal. But it is being discussed, and of course, with the first pass, there is potentially some severe cuts to Medicaid. So as a critical access hospital, as a rural hospital, we have to think about how much Medicaid do we have.
While many rural hospitals in other parts of the state and country, unlike those hospitals in other parts of the state and country, Skowron notes they do not rely on Medicaid as much as other places, but it would still be a potential reduction in revenue if passed.
We are fortunate. I've always called us rural light in that we are right in between the towns that have employers that a lot of residents from DeWitt County go to. So the employers like the state farms and the large employers, the university in Bloomington Normal, the employers in Decatur, the Springfield, Champaign, and so forth. We're right in the middle of all that. And therefore, we've got a lot of residents with good insurance, not Medicaid. So we are about 20% Medicaid on the average as the year goes. There are many smaller rural healthcare hospitals in southern Illinois. Let's just say, use a line and say south of the St. Louis area, that only have a couple of large employers. So they have a 50% on average Medicaid population. So they're really concerned about how these potentially severe Medicaid cuts are going to hit them. We've calculated at this point, with what we know, that there would be about a 3% reduction in our bottom line, in our profit, if the existing Medicaid cuts were to be enacted.
According to Skowron, Medicaid is a funding match program through the federal government. Because Illinois relies on those federal dollars more so than other states, it is very concerning for many communities.
Yes, and that's where states like Illinois are more concerned than some that did not access all of the federal government's subsidies, but Illinois did, and we took on all the new Medicaid patients that we could in the past 4, 8, 12 years, ever since Obama legislation. And that was good as long as the federal government was providing 55% subsidies to giving more people access to health care. But now with their clear intention to reduce the federal budget and hopefully, reduce their deficits, they're looking at these kind of programs and saying, we're going to cut back on them. And cutting back over time is good, but some of them would like to do it like in 1 year. Mm-hmm. So that's where we're concerned about severe cuts and reducing access to care for people.
While Trump has put a deadline of July 4th on passing his spending plan, Skowron notes the budget does not have to be passed until the fall. And while lawmakers work towards the Trump-imposed deadline, Skowron indicates they are continuing to advocate to avoid Medicaid cuts.
Yes, we did urge our congressmen, both in the federal government and in the state. As a matter of fact, our new mayor, Helen Michalasi, has just recently met with some of the state reps, Bill Hodder and Ms. Turner and so forth, and talked about many things from a city perspective. But she's also emphasized concern about any Medicaid cuts, and anything they can do to help us would be appreciated.
Yeah, sure.
So we appreciate her hitting the ground running as the new mayor and so every constituency, and we're in healthcare, has to advocate for themselves as strongly as they can. President Trump and House Speaker Johnson heads, their self-imposed July 4th, they were hoping to have a bill done by then. Highly unlikely, but it does give them the next month or 2 months to get it done, but they want to get it done sooner than later.
Skowron is hoping for the best, but planning for the worst. As we embark on the second biggest holiday of the summer, local authorities, our local law enforcement is encouraging residents to be respectful of the people around them. Clinton Police Chief Ben Lowers admits with the upcoming 3-day 4th of July weekend, the fun will be in abundance, so he is encouraging being mindful of the people around you.
You're talking about the outdoor gathering, being respectful of your neighbors. And it's not only easier to be respectful of your neighbors, but it's also easier to address an issue if you have a good relationship and a good rapport with that neighbor. It never ceases to amaze me. Obviously, that's what we do, and that's what we're there for, to answer citizen complaints and things. But, when the police have to get involved in a neighbor dispute or a neighbor issue, that is seldom ever going to enhance the relationship between two neighbors. Starting off in the beginning of just getting to know your neighbor and developing a mutual respect and whatnot is certainly going to help if there ever are issues in the future. And the ability to just sit down and talk to people or address problems respectfully up front without law enforcement interaction is probably going to be the better way to go any time that's a possibility. But yeah, just being respectful of each other, but also, looking out for each other.
With the summer in full swing, Chief Lowers reminds to continue to be vigilant in locking vehicle doors, garage doors, and home doors. He says while the issues of burglary seem to be down, the risk is always there.
We seem to talk about this every year, especially at the beginning of summer. Just a lot more going on, a lot more pedestrian traffic of all times of day and night. But, not only securing your own property, we've talked about those things in the past of securing your property. For crying out loud, please lock your car doors. Not as much. It kind of goes in spurts. We kind of go through different trends where we might have a rash of car burglaries for a little while, and then we don't. Knock on wood, right now, I don't think that's been a huge trend. But again, I'd like to believe that maybe that's because people are locking their car doors better. I'm not sure, but that's one of them for sure, is locking those car doors, locking those outdoor sheds, garages, things of that nature, just to minimize the opportunity of becoming becoming a victim of a theft. So that, motion lights are always a good thing. But yes, right back to not only looking out for your own things, but looking out for your neighbors as well. And that's so much easier to do when we introduce ourselves, we get to know each other,
With the holiday falling on a Friday, authorities anticipate pyrotechnics to be going off regularly throughout the weekend. They're encouraging the safe use of those and will use enforcement when necessary. We'll have more on that later this week on Regional Radio. Community Action provides developmental care for young children. Chrissy Conklin with Community Action indicates many people think the Head Start program is a daycare. However, that's far from the case. While there are some similarities, she notes the biggest difference lies in the curriculum and the schedule.
Just actually had our self-assessment this past week and lots of excellent discussion. It was great. Had 25 people participating in it. So that was awesome.
Cool.
And amidst that, we talk about some concerns and some barriers that we can maybe change and sometimes we can't. Maybe they're out of our control, a regulation or a statute change, something like that. And as I was just kind of processing all of the conversations and everything, something that kind of stuck out was, Head Start is not a daycare. And so that seems to be kind of a myth, if you will, that Head Start is a daycare, and it's not. So like some of the differences between, for example, a daycare, what you think of, and Head Start is, yes, we both need to follow very rigorous DCFS standards. Like that's definitely have to do that. But something that's different is curriculum. We have to have a curriculum and we have to have a set schedule. We have to have outdoor play, gross motor time. So using big muscles, small group time, literacy, language, math. We have to have all of that regularly. Every day, just like you think of a preschool, it's now actually called Head Start Preschool by the program performance standards. So we have to have curriculum. In addition to DCFS, we also have to follow IDEA, so Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So we have to do that too. And that obviously helps our kids when they need it.
Because of the program's affiliation with Community Action, Conklin explains Head Start also supports the families of the children they care for. This could be things like seeking financial stability or fighting addiction.
We also, because we're part of Community Action, and Capsule and all of those services and programs within that, we help the family. Like it's not just helping the child, but it's helping the family if they need to find a job or financial stability, or they really want to purchase a car or a house, or maybe they're struggling with some domestic violence, or, they're struggling with addiction. We can help them with that. So that's something additional and different that, daycares can't always or don't have the equipment or the manpower to do. Head Start is completely federal based, federal funding. So there's lots going on within just the news and everything about Head Start. It is completely federal based. It is one of the very few programs that comes straight from the federal government to the grantees, to the agencies.
Conklin also notes that before sending kids to Head Start, they must qualify for the program. She explains the main focus for Head Start and Community Action is supporting low-income families.
So there are some eligibility requirements. The main focus when Head Start started just a little bit over 60 years ago, we just had our 60th birthday in the United States. So that's really awesome. Hopefully there's 60 more years. But as far as eligibility goes, the main focus and the creation of Head Start was based upon helping low-income families. So that is the main focus for that. Foster families, children that are homeless, that is the focus. But we do take families, and we can take families that are considered over income. So over the federal poverty guidelines. It's not a large percent, but we can do that.
Conklin also says children in the Head Start program do not just learn about academics that will prepare for them for school, but they're also learning social and emotional skills.
So actually, that is also a huge, huge piece of Head Start. So if you think about the words Head Start, is to give them a literal head start in working towards what you just said. So school readiness and getting them ready to enter kindergarten with the social, emotional, the literacy, language skills that they need to help them in kindergarten and beyond. We hear a lot about like Head Start as a daycare, even some families, or whether they're in the program or not, like, oh, they're going to daycare today. And it's not. It is a preschool setup. I mean, it is very rigorous curriculum, standards, education, all of that. We also, as far as nutrition goes, we need to follow CACFP. So that's from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Schools have to abide by that too. It's the same. They have to have whole grain. They have to have vegetables and fruits. It's the same program. We have to abide by that. We get monitored. And so that's something else that we do too.
If you're interested in early childhood education for your child through Community Action's Head Start program, you can visit capsule.info. News time is 22 minutes after 7 o'clock on this Tuesday. We'll continue on next on the morning show.
Baum Chevrolet Buick offers full transportation options while giving you peace of mind. This is Scott Baum from Baum Chevrolet Buick here in Clinton. This is what we do every day. We listen to you, give you options for routine maintenance, major mechanical problems, or collision repairs with a staff that's knowledgeable to find the best option for you. Baum Chevrolet Buick, your full-service dealer. See us at BaumChevyBuick.com right from the start.
DeWittDailyNews.com is the area's leading local news source 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get the latest local news, obituaries, police blotter, weather forecast, and more with no paywall. Head to DeWittDailyNews.com to get the local information you need to know.
Netflix buffering, YouTube spinning, devices not connecting, Zoom calls dropping. Ugh, it's frustrating. Let's end your frustration by signing up for fiber internet in Clinton. Click the Connexus icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
News time is 23 minutes after 7 o'clock here on this Tuesday. Again, I'm Seth Lawrence with you folks today for this expanded local newscast brought to you by Baum Chevrolet Buick in Clinton and Connexus, providing fiber internet to Clinton. Another good year for ag education in Illinois. Jennifer Waters is the coordinator for facilitating coordination in ag education.
Looking at numbers, wrapping things up, we have 393 agriculture education programs here in the state of Illinois. That number continues to rise each year, and those programs are led by 564 teachers. So we have 564 ag teachers in Illinois, and that number just continues to rise. Off air, we were talking this year, we're adding an additional 10 new programs for the coming year here in Illinois. So just continues to grow, continue to see interest by students and communities for ag education. And what's interesting is this past year, our membership was at 41,937 students taking agriculture classes, which is huge. But of that, what really shocked me was 7,876 of those people are middle school students. So we're growing our middle school programs, and that starts in 5th grade. So we have kids who are taking agriculture classes from 5th grade on up to their senior year. Now, of course, they can only be FFA members starting in 7th grade, but we can definitely, lean on ag in the classroom to get them to the 5th grade level. And then we can start with ag education classes with our ag teachers after that point. They're in 5th grade now.
Out of the 10 new ag programs being added next school year, 7 are at the middle school level. Attention continues to focus on the U.S. Senate with the budget's reconciliation process, or the One Big Beautiful Bill. Illinois Farm Bureau President Brian Duncan, along with IFB District 1 Director Mark Tuttle and IFB Young Leader Chair Stephen Riskidle had an audience earlier this month with Illinois Senators Dick Durbin and Tammy Duckworth. Farm Bureau Director of National Legislation, Ryan Whitehouse.
The tax provisions are pretty good for our farm families. And so we want to make sure that those are important. The estate tax, extremely important to our farm families. The bonus depreciation, the immediate expensing, allowing farmers to, expense all that stuff. So for tax reasons, for new equipment and stuff, important. When we talked about the ag policy, Senator Durbin is on the ag committee, and he'd been talking with Ms. Klobuchar, the ranking member, and then also Senator Bozeman. He's friends with both of them and talking about those provisions. So we were talking about what we need in those. And Obviously, the crop insurance and making sure that is more resources are put into crop insurance. We understand, and that Illinois is a donor state. Our farmers pay more in than what we receive, but are there ways to maybe level that out and make that more equitable for the farmers in Illinois? When we look at the conservation funding and making sure that Illinois receives its fair share of dollars when we're talking about EQIP dollars or cover crop dollars or CSP dollars, when we're talking about livestock issues and all that stuff, reference prices going up a little bit.
Senate Republicans are hoping to pass the bill by July 4th. If the Senate passes the bill, it will return to the House for a vote. The Illinois Fire Service Institute is hosting a grain bin rescue operations course for rural fire departments later this summer. The 40-hour program will detail grain storage facility types, their construction, and operating features.
The grain bin rescue operations class was designed for the small local rural department. People don't understand the level of training that it takes to be able to enter a grain bin. Farmers with less than 10 employees don't fall under OSHA. Grain elevators fall under what's called the grain standard. It's OSHA 1910-272. We fall under 1910-146, which is the confined space standard. So the first responders have the highest standard to meet to perform the rescue. So we actually have two classes. We have an awareness level class, which runs about 6 hours, and it trains the first responders a lot on their pre-planning. So we ask the questions and try to answer them before I have to ask them. And it trains the first responders on everything they can do outside the bin. And that's usually a one-day class, or we break it up into 2 evenings, depending on the department's training schedule. Then we designed the 40-hour grain bin rescue operations class. And what this does is makes the first responders OSHA compliant to be able to get in the bin.
The 40-hour course will be offered July 18th through the 20th and July 25th through the 27th at the Verdon Fire Department. Get more information at fsi.illinois.edu. There is no cost for Illinois fire departments. News time is 29 minutes after 7 o'clock here on this Tuesday. Coverage of news is brought to you by Baum Chevrolet Buick in Clinton, your Silverado headquarters, and brought to you by Connexus, providing fiber internet to Clinton. Learn more at DeWittDailyNews.com.